Hi, my name is Richard Leiter, a self-published author of literary fiction, and welcome to my YouTube channel, Thoughts on Writing. Okay, so today I would like to give my thoughts, my take, my opinions about the whole Leonardo da Vinci, Salvator Mundi debacle that took place. Now, I've listened to a lot of videos about this, and a lot of very good videos that have talked about the restoration, or some people think the horrible over restoration of the Leonardo. I mean, people have given. There's one fellow. There's a channel, Art versus Machine, and the podcaster of that channel has a very, very extensive discussion about the actual restoration of the Salvator Mundi. It's quite exhaustive and wonderful, and there are there are some other videos which give a bird's eye view of the whole history of the Salvator Mundi, from its inception when it was first purchased for a song to its final sale at Christie's for $400 million or $450 million. So, I mean, I'm not going to go over that information again, rake it up. I mean, I personally think, as many others do, that once the painting was put back together, it really should not have been restored at all. It just should have been put in a museum, and people should have been allowed to make their own judgments about the painting. But that's just my opinion. But what I want to do is I want to give my own twist on this Salvator Mundi. What to me, what is the ultimate meaning, the ultimate takeaway from the whole Salvator Mundi experience? That's what I'm interested in. I thought about this for a long time, and these are the conclusions that I've reached. I reached two conclusions. The first conclusion I've reached is that $1 million in today's world ain't what it used to be. I mean, we certainly do have inflation, don't we? I think it was in 1961. The Metropolitan Museum, I was 9 years old at the time. The Metropolitan Museum of Art purchased Rembrandt's Aristotle Contemplating the Bust of Homer for $2.3 million. And at that time, that was the highest price ever paid for a work of art. Then, in 1971, the Metropolitan Museum of Art, I remember this well, purchased Velázquez's portrait of Juan Perea for $5.5 million, more than double the Aristotle. $5.5 million, that was a big deal back then, right? And of course, the Leonardo was purchased for, once again, $450 million, almost $500 million. So yes, your dollar isn't what it used to be. That's the first takeaway from this. The second takeaway from this that I have is a little, I don't think anyone's ever talked about this before. In my opinion, the way that Salvator Mundi was handled is pretty much the way that big government handles everything. And what do I mean by this? Well, what I mean by it is that big government operates under the following principles. It always tells us that whatever it is doing is always for our best interests. They only have our best interest at heart. They're only doing whatever they do for noble, altruistic, selfless reasons. And of course, what ends up happening when all the dust and smoke clear and all the political rhetoric fades away, we find out that they really didn't do it for our own, for our own good, for noble reasons. What they did is they do whatever they do for more power, for more wealth, for more control over us. It's always for self-aggrandizement. You know, for me, the purpose of big government is not really to, minister to the needs of the people. The primary directive of any big government is self-preservation. It's for the government to control, to grow ever larger. That's the purpose of big government. And I find, well, what happened with the Salvator Mundi? Well, I mean, all throughout this whole debacle, fiasco, mess, all I ever heard about was how all of these art restorers and Leonardo's scholars who were debating. Well, there was only one restorer, Dwyer Modestini, but anybody involved with the Salvator Mundi was only talking about whatever they did was only, for being done for the highest noble altruistic purposes. It was only being done to cherish the legacy of Leonardo da Vinci. That was it. That was their only purpose, to make sure that what they did was going to be displayed in a museum so the whole world could see it, and they were all just bending over backwards so that you and I could enjoy the fruits of the master. And of course, what happened? Just like what really happened was this. After the restoration, huge sums of money were made on this thing. This thing was like the biggest cash cow ever. Everybody made out on this. Robert Simon, and his partner, who bought this painting for a song at a New Orleans auction for, I think, $1,000. They made out pretty good. By the way, I am not faulting Robert Simon for having had the good business sense to see that this might be a potential old master painting or of the school of Leonardo. I'm not faulting him for that. A shrewd business move. But all I'm saying is that the bottom line is that he made a ton of money. He and his partner, $75 or $80 million between the two of them. And Dwyer Modestini, she made, who knows what she made? I have no idea. Maybe Simon and his partner threw her, I don't know, I have no idea. Maybe they gave her $2.5 million apiece. So maybe she made several $1 million on the restoration. Who knows? The art experts, the academics like Kemp, the consultants trying to determine whether this was a real Leonardo and to what extent it was a real Leonardo, what percentage of it was actually done by the hand of the master, and what percentage it possibly was done by the school of Leonardo. Well, I'm sure that he made out pretty good too. And Christie certainly made out wonderfully. I mean, what did they make? $50 million on the commission? All pretty good. So, when you think about it, the altruistic part of it was just kind of like the cover story. Just like with big government, it's the cover story that's always put out there, while the real purpose of all this fuss is to make as much money as possible. And that's exactly what happened. All these people fed on this thing. Now, again, I have nothing against people making enormous sums of money. Simon was is an art dealer. He's a businessman. That's his business. So he made money on it. That's very good. I have nothing against that. What I object to is the fact that not once, personally, I have never, ever heard anyone say anything about the money aspect of this. during the Restoration. I've never heard even a 15-second soundbite about the money aspect. All you hear over and over and over again is how it's only being done for the legacy of Leonardo. Never, ever anything else. So these guys want to have their cake and eat it too. Not only do they want to make fabulous, incomprehensible sums of money on this thing, but they want to come across as feeling that they are also the noblest of people. They want both of them, And I wouldn't mind. If they talked about how noble they all are and how they're just, sacrificing themselves for the good of Leonardo. That I wouldn't mind them talking about this ad nauseum as they did. If they just devoted 5 seconds to talking about the fact that yes, everyone is going to, this painting is going to make a huge sum of money. And yes, we are doing it partially for the amount of money that we will make off of this painting. Just be a little honest, a little realistic. But no, they never, ever cop to that. Never. Just like the government never cops to anything that they're doing for self-aggrandizement. And I would have liked that. So in this sense, they are mirroring the government. That's a very big similarity that I see. Here's another similarity between the Leonardo Salvator Mundi and big government. Do you remember in the 2008 economic meltdown that we had? There were several people, but chief among them was a woman named Brooksley Bourne. I think she was head of the OTC Derivative Commission or Securities Exchange Commission, something like that. And Brooksley Bourne was a voice in the wilderness, and she was trying to give the message out that we were headed for this 2008 crisis if we didn't get a handle on the derivative market. Well, she was soundly ignored. I think there have been several documentaries about her having been completely ignored and marginalized. And of course, what happened economically in 2008? Well, the Titanic finally hit the iceberg. Now let's talk about the Salvator Mundi. I understand from one of the videos I watched that there was an expert on Leonardo whose name was Carlo Pedretti. Let's see if I get it right here. Yes, Carlo Pedretti. Carlo Pedretti warned the public, or tried to get the message out, not to be too taken in by all the glitz, by all the marketing that was being done to boost the price of the Leonardo. That caution should be exercised in deciding whether this really was a Leonardo or a school of Leonardo or something else. He tried, and I think one or two other people tried to warn the public. But again, the hysteria that was generated by Christie's and by their public relations their public relations campaign, totally marginalized Carlo Pedretti and anybody else who warned about this. Same thing. You all remember the commercials that were put out by Christie's where you had people lining up in front of the painting, and you didn't see the painting, you just saw the expression of the people who were looking at the painting and how awed and inspired they were by the image of the Salvator Mundi. There was one elderly lady there, I remember, I saw this myself, who looked at the painting and she started almost crying, simpering, like quivering, with the force of the painting. She was so bowled over by it. This is what they did, and of course this was done to jack up the price of the painting, and it sure as hell was successful, wasn't it? So that's another similarity I see. Now, of course, there are the most glaring similarities between big government and the Salvator Mundi I'm going to tell you about right now. In 2001, on November 10th, 2001, the then Secretary of Defense, Donald Rumsfeld, came out as saying that the Pentagon could not account for $2.3 trillion. That's trillion with a T. They couldn't find it. I guess they must have, left it in a drawer someplace, and they just didn't know where it was. I guess, Rumsfeld must have said to one of his, accountants, "Hey, Sal, where's that 2.3 trillion?" And Sal said, "Gee, Don, damned if I know. Didn't we put it in this drawer? No, in that drawer. No. So something like that must have happened, right? So that happened on 9/10. On 9/11, well, we had 9/11, didn't we? And because we had 9/11, we were so overwhelmed by it that nobody ever mentioned the 2.3 missing trillion again. It was never mentioned. There was no public outcry. There was nobody ever said, let's investigate this. It was totally gone, forgotten, Well, missing money, we never found it. Well, what happened to the Salvator Mundi? After all this hue and cry about how it was all done, all this restoration, just so that we, the public, could go to the museum and see it, how we could get in front of the Salvator Mundi and how we could whimper, we could start bawling, because of the magnificence of the painting. What happened to the painting? Nobody knows what happened to it. It's gone now, gone into the ether. I can't go to a museum, and you can't go to a museum and look at this painting because nobody knows where it is. Is it in a free port in Hong Kong someplace? Is it in Paris someplace? Does the prince who purchased the painting, does he have it on his yacht? Is it nobody knows. Nobody has known since it was bought by the prince. It's just gone into the ether, just like the $2.3 trillion is. Here's another example. In the 2008 meltdown, economic meltdown, Hank Paulson, the then Secretary of the Treasury, I believe, went before Congress and he asked them for a $700 billion bailout. He said, "Hey fellas, you got to give us this money, because if you don't give us this money, the world as we know it is not going to exist anymore. It's going to be Mad Max tomorrow." Well, not surprisingly, Congress voted to give Hank Paulson the $700 billion bailout. Now, my question to you is, do you know what happened to that $700 billion? I sure as hell don't. What happened to it? Did it do any good? Our situation now economically is a heck of a lot worse than it was back in 2008. I don't think anyone's going to debate that. So what happened to it? Now, some people, some very nasty, very cynical, very bitter people, have made the nasty suggestion that $700 billion didn't go to restore our economy to health at all, that it just went to line the pockets of hedge fund managers and Wall Street people and Goldman Sachs people, Now, perish the thought that I would actually share that very cynical, bitter point of view. Nevertheless, notwithstanding, I don't know where the money went to, and nobody else does either. And for that matter, you and I probably have absolutely no idea how much money the government has printed since then. We have no idea what inflation is. You can't go by these government figures that leave this out and that leave that out. We don't know. So again, just like with the 2.3 trillion that Donald Rumsfeld talked about, poof, the money is gone. Well, same thing with the Salvator Mundi, poof, the Salvator Mundi is gone. So what do we have when all the smoke and mirrors are gone and all the fine words and the altruistic noble sentiments, about how all this is being done just so that you and I could partake of this miracle on canvas? What's left? What's real? Not the painting. The painting isn't real. It's vanished. It's gone. It's as if it never existed. What's real is the enormous sums of money that all the people involved got. That's real. That's very real. So that's the similarity between that I see, that my take on it, the crossover, the link, the relationship between this whole art industry and big government. It used to be that, the definition of fascism, the classic definition, I believe, is the merger of the state and the corporation, the merger of government, big government, and big corporations, right? Well, we can add to that list, I think, the merger of the art industry. So it's all, because this is exactly the same way that they seem to operate. So it's all one big jumble now. Nothing is accountable. Nobody is accountable anymore for anything. It's all one big jumble. It's all a bunch of altruistic, fine words. And nobody is accountable for backing up those fine words with fine deeds. I mean, isn't that what it's all about? Ye shall know them not by their words, but by their actions, by their deeds. The words are always fine, but what are the deeds? What is actually done? That's how you judge stuff. And I see an enormous abyss between what was spoken about concerning the Salvator Mundi and what actually happened. And so that is the ultimate meaning for me. I could be totally wrong about this. It's just my humble opinion. But I've been thinking about it for a long time, and I just wanted to get that out there. Thank you very much.